it seems to me that in the long run, a little bit more of the burden's going to have to go on the consumer buying a car. If you're going to take the risk of buying a used car, there's things like TrueCar and Carfax now that look up the history of the car that seem to be very worthwhile products. Is it possible now for an individual consumer, whether they're going to buy that car on a lot or they're going to buy it over Craigslist or from their neighbor who's got a for sale sign on a car in front of his house, can an individual access the database now to look up the recall? And is there any way to put in the car's VIN number or license plate to see if that car has had the fix that's needed?
Yes, the answer is very clear and simple, and this is a major change since last year's bills. Since last year, under federal law, we have a new federal database. You look it up under safercar.gov. You put your 17-digit VIN into the system, and if you have an open recall, it pops up. It apparently is working well. If you had a recall and it's been fixed, your VIN will not pop up. So we are moving towards an era where consumers will have information and it's easy to get. And they're, in that sense, as empowered as dealers to find out the recall status of the car.
Can you send me some more information? I'd like to get that to my district. And for my, I apologize, I did not catch either one of your names. Several times you mentioned how this would undermine the federal law or undermine current law, make consumers less safe, and really give them less of an ability to get a recourse if there is some type of, if they've been wronged. But you didn't really go into much in terms of details or specifics. I heard several times you talked about how this will undermine the law. I heard several times how this will make consumers less protected. I didn't hear any specifics. Could you address, under your first scenario, the gentleman who represents the consumer advocates, how would the scenario that you told us about, the gentleman whose steering column, or I forget the exact situation, his car malfunctioned, how would this current law have made his situation worse? I mean, it seems like you described a bad situation that happened to a customer under current law, but I don't see how that really plays into your opposition of the bill today. How would this current law have made this situation worse, and how has this undermined current law? I'd like some actual tangible, real evidence, because you let's be honest, you kind of really, oppose the bill based on, to me, just an idea this is someone going to undermine current law without giving very hard examples of how.
Well, in a given situation, it could be an improvement. Here's the problem with these notices and disclosures. Sophisticated consumers, yeah, okay, but they're not the great mass of car buyers. The great mass of car buyers don't understand these things. They don't act on them. And also, but more important, in the example I gave, the parts weren't available. So if somebody gets that notice, it wouldn't have done any good because the parts weren't available. And what should happen is the dealer should have to hold that vehicle until it gets fixed before they can sell it.
And to address that specific example that Mr. Anderson mentioned, in David Clayton's case, he hired an attorney in Fresno who represented him, who brought a cause of action against the dealer under the California Legal Remedies Act, 17200, Unfair and Deceptive Acts and Practices, and a number of other statutes. And he was they reached a negotiated confidential settlement in that case. At the earlier hearing, a witness who testified against the bill was Callie Hauk, who lost her 2 daughters in a recalled vehicle. And in her case, she sued both Chrysler and the rental car company that had rented the car without fixing the recall. By the way, the recall in Mr. Clayton's case was not a do not drive. The recall that killed Rachel and Jackie Hauk was done a do not drive. And that's typical of 99% of the safety recalls that would be under this bill. Dealers would be allowed, affirmatively permitted, to sell vehicles that have defects like catching on fire, the wheels fall off, the airbags explode in your face and spew shrapnel into your face. The seatbelts don't work when you need them. No question that these are life-threatening safety defects. And one of the concerns that we have with the bill is that it's inherently misleading and irresponsible for for an industry to be saying these are not serious safety defects. The rest of the entire community, the manufacturers, are trying to get to 100% compliance with the recalls. They're not, dividing them up between do not drive, which is like practically mythical, and all the other recalls. We're concerned consumers are going to get the message. The state of California has decided these vehicles are not such a big threat. You can go ahead and buy it. When you put people on the road in these cars, there's no way to know when the defect will occur. Sometimes people have been killed the same day or within hours of when the key is put into their hands.
And if I may, let's ask Mr. Belote to address some of those concerns.
Just very, very briefly, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. We make it very clear that none of the causes of action mentioned by Ms. Shahan or by Mr. Anderson, under statutory law or common law, are affected in any way by this bill. So if it's a common law fraud action or misrepresentation, or if it is a statutory claim under the Consumers Legal Remedy Act or 17200, it is preserved.
Got it. I'll get to you in a second, Mr. Wilk. Could somebody, it doesn't matter if it's the proponents or opponents, let the committee know how many recalls occur every year?
Sure. Mr. Chair, last year was 63.8 million recalls in the state, in the entire United States. That was twice as many as any year previously in history since 1966 when recalls started. So 2014 was 63.8, 2013 was 22.6, I want to say, 22.4. And in 2012, it was something like 16 million recalls. So recalls have definitely increased.
So that's 172,000 a day.
Correct.
Okay, and I think that's what this bill is trying to get at, unless I'm mistaken and the analysts up here are mistaken. There are recalls that are, and this bill does distinguish between safety recalls, not using NHTSA terminology, but using California's own terminology. It distinguishes between, it's my understanding, safety recalls and things like a dome light is broken and we're holding up commerce because of that dome light. So
And Mr. Chair, and that's why we're concerned about the bill. That's one of the key reasons we oppose the bill, because that...
Is the dome lights or?
No, because the recalls where the dealers would be permitted to sell the cars, where people have a reasonable expectation when they go to a dealer, he's not selling them a car with a lethal safety defect, that the manufacturer has acknowledged is defective and needs to be repaired to be safe to operate, that this bill would allow them to sell those cars. And it's not for petty reasons that they're being recalled. The main reason we're seeing more recalls now, Mr. Chair, is that we know, for instance, with the GM ignition switch, GM illegally concealed that defect from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They're paying dearly for that. So, as a result, this is where the switch switches off. You lose power steering, you lose power brakes, and your airbags don't work.
Surely the 66 million recall. It's been explained to me.
2.9 million cars.
Right. But it's been explained to me by some of the federal officials that you stated you wanted to be here today that the term safety recall is a bit redundant. That every recall is a safety recall. And that if a dome light is broken, they have to express that as a safety issue as well, which means that there really are different classes of recalls. There's an ignition, there's a braking error, and then there's a dome light that's broken. True? False? I see some people nodding. I see some. Mr.
Costa,
Costa,
the subject of safety recalls. They're just not. They're the subject of technical service bulletins to the dealer will help them fix it when somebody brings it in. But they don't fall under the Safety Act. They don't fall under the federal law.
Or Mr. Gordon.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, manufacturers have been switching from issuing these technical recalls to dealers and putting everything, or technical notice or a correction notice. They've been making everything a recall. That's why the number's going up. And in this bill, we use the only definition available, which is the federal definition of, do not drive. And so, at the end of the day, I think, consumers will have the information they need to make the appropriate decisions.
And if I can add, Mr. Chair, dealers are selling these cars today. Today, the consumer is blind when they walk into a dealership, and they're not being told about recalls at all. This bill does something. It grounds the most serious, where the manufacturers have said, do not drive this vehicle, when the dealer has been told through the recall notice to not sell that vehicle, and then the consumers are told about every other available recall. This is not, we're not intending to try to bury the document, bury the disclosure. We're trying to inform the consumers to better know than what they have today. There's nothing that requires dealers to do anything today.
Got it. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wilk, who had a question.
Well, actually, the point I was going to bring up is what the author just did. The manufacturers have gone from issuing these technical notices to safety recalls. I don't know about you, but every car I've gotten is improved in reliability over the years. So here's what I walk away with on this bill. One, I don't have any confidence in the federal government to act on this quickly. Two, I served on BNP the last 2 years. We've taken stabs at this. Think it was very broad brushed and wasn't going to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. I think this is a very nuanced piece of public policy which actually does protect consumers. Is it perfect? You know, probably not. But I would rather come back next year and tweak it than to continue down the path that we're going down, which is no protection for consumers at all. So I salute you for the bill, and I plan to vote for it this afternoon. I guess I'm chair now. Great. Mr. Dabodnik.
I just have one quick follow-up, and I'll try to keep it brief. I do appreciate both sides for the answers to my last questions. If I go into a used car lot today, or possibly a new car lot, most cars that are used will have either an as-is or under warranty check. If I go into a car lot after this is sold, or buy from a private individual where I have far less information on the car unless I do the research myself, will that car sticker now include something that talks about warranties? Will it have to say something like, well, obviously, if it has a warranty issue, it probably couldn't be certified or have a warranty if it had an outstanding recall, but would it have some kind of notification on the car at the time of sale that would highlight the fact that there is a recall pending or an issue with the car?
Mr. Bondman, the bill sets out very clearly that we have to disclose to the buyer prior to sale. We are committed to continuing to work with you and to work with others to try to define exactly what that's going to look like. But at this point, the bill says I have to give you the disclosure and tell you there's a recall on the bill, on the vehicle. I got to provide you a recall notice, the actual recall notice issued by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and then you have the choice to either sign the document acknowledging that you are aware of the recall and that you can go get that recall repaired for free at a vehicle dealer of the same line make, or you can walk away from the transaction.
I'm
going to give you a chance to finish, but let me just do one follow-up on that. And currently,
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And currently, your dealers don't have to do any of that. And also, I know you mentioned earlier that they do have a burden not to sell cars that they knowingly have issues. But now, not only do they have an obligation to, under this new statute, they'd have to also look up to see if there was a defect. So they'd have to proactively check the database, which is something they would not have to do today.
Correct.
Okay, now I'll let you finish.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, so full disclosure on that. But to respond to your question about when the notice would be given, under the bill, the dealer could advertise as CarMax does. All our vehicles have to pass 125-point inspection. They're in top condition, get you onto the lot. And then 4 hours later, after you pick out the individual car, they would provide you with a copy of the recall notice, which, unlike Mr. Acosta said, is not issued by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It's issued by the manufacturer. The NHTSA signs off on the language. It's very legalistic. It's only in English. It doesn't say very relevant information about how many people have been injured or killed, or that you in particular may be more vulnerable. For instance, with the Takata airbag or the GM ignition switch defect, many of the victims are young women because they don't have the upper body strength when the power steering and power brakes go and the airbag is no longer working. When you look at the fatalities and injuries, they're more vulnerable. So what you're doing is putting the consumer in a position where they're being asked to make a life or death decision based on very complete information. And at the earlier hearing, a young person testified about his buying experience where he purchased a PT Cruiser that had the same recall that killed Rachel and Jackie Hauk. As when he turned 18, it was his first car. He was excited about buying his first car. He since has seen the recall notice, and he testified, look, as an 18-year-old buying my first car, I figure if I'm getting it from a dealer, it must be safe.
Well, I'll just close by saying to the author, I will support your bill today. I think it's a good bill. I think providing more information to consumers is always a good idea. I do understand some of the concerns of the advocates here today. I would love to see more specific language in the near future about when, at what point during the sales transaction, as early as possible. Hopefully, the notice will be made available to consumers. But I do think that providing more information to consumers is always a step in the right direction.
All right, let's go to Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a comment. First, I want to thank the author for bringing this. I think this is proactive, a common sense approach to educating consumers on upfront more than what they have today, and I would move this bill, Mr. Chairman.
Bill's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any other questions from the panel? I just want to thank you for working on this bill. I know that you and your co-authors have a reputation around here for working on consumer protection measures, and to the extent that this House gives people the benefit of the doubt based on the authors, you certainly have it because of your past history, along with Ms. Eggman and Mr. Stone and Mr. Jones and all the terrific bipartisan team you have on this bill of working for measures that I think are in the benefit of the consumer. Personally, I think this is on the right track. I think it's a step in the right direction to providing more information to consumers. I, too, would like to share what Mr. Dababneh said, which is perhaps we need to make it clear in the bill as it moves forward that it's in a conspicuous manner, or it could be just adding one word to the bill language. But I thank you for working with my committee staff. You took a number of amendments that I think make this a strong bill for consumers. And with that, I'll ask you if you'd like to close.
Thank you. Let me assure both you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Dababneh that I will be working to try to make sure that we get this notification to consumers as early as possible. I don't want somebody to be on a used car lot, fall in love with a car, and then be put in some position where, oh, now I'm told. No, I think it has to occur early, and we're working to figure out what's the best way to do that. And I'll continue to work on that. I just, in closing, would remind you that there's currently in California no restriction on the sale or rental of a used car with that's under a recall. There's no requirement of notice to a consumer that there's been a recall, and I'm not one who wants to wait for federal law to protect California consumers. And so with that, I would urge an aye vote.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended to appropriations. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Wilk?
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Baker? Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Chang? Aye. Chang, aye. Chow? Aye. Chow, aye. Cooper? Dababneh? Aye. Dababneh, aye. Dolly? Aye. Dolly, aye. Gordon?
Aye.
Gordon, aye. Lowe.
Your bill is passed. We will hold the roll open for others to add on. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who came up here to testify, both in support and against the bill. Mr. Ting, the world's most patient man, Mr. Ting, steps to the dais.
Well, sitting on B&P the last 2 years, I almost felt like that was a replay.
Now, Mr. Ting, you have Assembly Bill 1215,
Very
which enjoys a due
controversial.
pass recommendation.
Yeah, I have a very controversial bill. I think we'll be here for a few hours. AB 1215 establishes a chief data officer for California. Thank you. It just creates more open government, more transparency. Would ask for your support.
Terrific. Let's go to your first witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Paul Gladfeldy, representing the Data Transparency Coalition. This is truly a bill that needs to take place in California, provide for transparency of data that's currently siloed in many different agencies. Health and Human Services Agency has already done this with great success, and it would apply to other agencies, and would simply ask for your aye vote.
Terrific. Any other witnesses in support? Public comments in support? Witnesses in oh, there's somebody. Sorry. All right.
Sylvia Solis on behalf of City of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. We believe that this will complement efforts at the local level to increase efficiency and openness at improved government efficiency.
Getting choked up.
And responsiveness. Yeah, sorry. I'm cold. I apologize. But in support. Thank you.
Terrific. Anybody else on the proponent side? Are there witnesses in opposition? Anybody against open data? Seeing nobody. All right. Bill's been properly moved and seconded. Would you care to close?
Just ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Wilk? Baker? Calderon? Calderon, aye. Chang? Chang, aye. Chow? Chow, aye. Cooper? DeBobne? DeBobne, aye. Dolly? Dolly, aye. Gordon? Gordon, aye. Lowe.
All right, that bill is passed. We will hold the roll open for others to add on.
Thank you.
All right, I see that Ms. Irwin has snuck in or sneaked in. And Ms. Irwin has Assembly Bill 556 and 739. Terrific. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gatto and committee members. AB 556 will improve disclosure requirements for for-profit charitable fundraisers and clarify that the Attorney General's 10-year statute of limitations includes for-profit fundraising firms and other third parties who engage in misconduct related to charities. A recent charity fraud case by the Attorney General brought to light inadequacies in the current law. And I think we've already read about it. And would anybody else like to?
We can go to your first witness in support.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Robbie Sumner. I'm with the Attorney General's office. I won't speak for too long, just the fact that we take protecting the sanctity of donations in California very seriously. We consider donors to charities to be like consumers, and we consider charities to be a valuable part of our community as almost a chamber of commerce. And so we are very happy to be supporting this bill, and we thank Assemblymember Irwin for authoring it.
Perfect. Next witness.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman Gatto, members of the committee. I'm Jennifer Fearing, and I'm pleased to serve as the Sacramento advocate for Cal Nonprofits, a statewide policy alliance of nearly 10,000 organizations representing and promoting Californians' growing nonprofit sector. As noted in our seminal report issued last fall, Causes Count, the economic power of California's nonprofit sector, nonprofit organizations are a large and vital part of the California economy, with nonprofit economic activity contributing 15% of our gross state product. And we're trusted institutions. Our report shows that Californians believe that nonprofits do a better job than either government or the for-profit sector in acting in the public's behalf, providing quality services, operating effectively, and spending money wisely. Cal Nonprofits is pleased to support AB 556 because it aims to maintain Californians' well-placed confidence in charitable giving by closing gaps in the law that no legitimate charity needs to exploit in order to fulfill its mission. We urge your aye vote on AB 556.
Terrific. Next witness.
Tiffany White on behalf of the Wounded Warrior Project. Wounded Warrior Project is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to honoring and empowering wounded warriors. Our vision is to foster the most successful, well-adjusted generation of wounded service members in our nation's history. At present, we are working toward this ambitious goal by offering 20 programs and services to more than 64,000 injured service members. We would like to thank the author for bringing AB 556 forward, which addresses the important issues of ethics in the nonprofit sector, as well as demonstrates a compelling interest in maintaining public trust, which is vital to our mission. We appreciate the author working with us to improve AB 556, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Is there any public comment in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Working with the author, not opposition.
All right. We got a tweener, folks.
Mr. Chair and members, Steve Carlson for the Direct Marketing Association's Nonprofit Federation. We have been working with the author and talk to the Attorney General's representative outside today. We worked on the amendments that are in the bill today, and we think that there are some additional ones that the bill could benefit from. And we look forward to working with you, author. I'd like to introduce Chris Oswald, who's Vice President of State Affairs for the Direct Marketing Association, maybe to discuss, where we are.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Chris Oswald. I'm VP of State Affairs for the Direct Marketing Association, and the DMA's Nonprofit Federation is the leading association for nonprofit organizations that use direct marketing channels to gain support from individual donors, and that's mail, email, internet, social, you name it. The DMA Nonprofit Federation promotes best practices and advocates on vital issues for its over 300 members, most of which are major national charities, including Disabled American Vets, Easter Seals, March of Dimes, Special Olympics, Feed the Children. The list goes on and on. We support the effort by Assemblymember Irwin and the Attorney General to help charities and the donating public through the introduction and the revision of AB 556, and to advance the bill's goals of providing transparency and clarity to donors and practitioners. We've worked with the author and sponsors of the amendments and helped with the amendments that are currently in the bill, and we've been working with the author and look forward to having included some final tweaking, non-substantive clarifying amendments to the bill. As Mr. Carlson said, we had a good conversation briefly with the AG's representative just out in the hall, and we're encouraged by that. So these amendments that we're offering up were drafted to kind of promote a consistent construction of the law to make it clear to the practitioners both what is required under the law and what those obligations and legal responsibilities and prohibitions are. And we submitted those changes to the author in the AG's office last week, and we have several major national charities that are supportive of those changes. So without any more, we look forward to seeing those changes hopefully included in the bill, where we can then lend our full support to its passage into law.
Well, thank you very much. Is there public comment in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments? Mr. Calderon.
I just want to thank the author for bringing the bill forward. I think it's a great bill. It seems like you guys, in terms of the opposition, are pretty close. I just want to encourage you to urge your sponsors to continue to work with the opposition. But I think it's a great bill, and I look forward to supporting it today.
Mr. Dababneh.
I also think this is a very worthy bill. I was very supportive of the fact that you've increased the Attorney General's ability to go after people engaging in fraud by increasing the statute of limitations. I think that if a charity is guilty of a crime for misleading donors or using the money illegally, and the Attorney General can go after them for a 10-year period, those that are private fundraisers under this definition should also face a longer ability to go after them. My one question was this: in terms of the change of definition, I was reading here basically how it would go to expanded definition of commercial fundraisers for charitable purposes. What would be the defining line if someone actually is engaging in the fundraising? I mean, it seems like the loophole, it really shouldn't be a loophole. It should be very clear. If you hire someone to work on a nonprofit event and their job is to plan the event, to organize the event, to coordinate, as long as they're not engaged in solicitations of donations, they keep the previous title. I mean, what is the dividing line in terms of how you're going to make that standard? And secondly, if there's any way to include political fundraising in this, I would definitely go off it. So.
I think what we're really trying to do is just clarify exactly what the differences are between the commercial fundraisers and the commercial council. That's where we think the abuse has taken place.
I would definitely support that, and we've all seen stories on the nightly news where you've seen some of these charities are paying 80% to private companies, obviously not represented by the companies here today, but I would hope there is a small exception for people that are obviously not professional fundraisers or maybe hired to organize an event or manage an event that do some small-scale fundraising for the event. I think that is something that should be looked at as maybe an exception. and one size doesn't fit all, but I'm very supportive of this bill, and we'll hope you'll continue to work with everyone at the table today to find compromise. Thank you.
And it is about disclosure. So it's not preventing anything from happening. It's not setting limits on how much these fundraisers can make. It's about making sure that the public knows exactly where their money is going.
It's a good thing.
Mr. Chow.
Just for clarification purposes, individuals who raise fund on a flat fee basis, those individuals are already governed by current law. Is that not correct? Correct. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I believe the bill's been moved and seconded. It has. Would you like to close?
Well, I just want to say, as a former city council member and a member of many nonprofit boards, I see the enormous benefit that nonprofit charities have in our community, and we don't want the poor actions of a few bad players to tarnish the entire industry. So we think this is a good government measure, and I really appreciate the positive comments. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Wilk? Baker? Calderon? Aye. Calderon, aye. Chang? Aye. Chang, aye. Chow? Aye. Chow, aye. Cooper? DeBobne? Aye. DeBobne, aye. Dolly? Aye. Dolly, aye. Gordon? Aye. Gordon, aye. Lowe.
The bill is passed. We will hold the roll open for add-ons. Okay, next you have Assembly Bill 739.